Welcome back. All right, so the NHL finally announced what we all kind of knew. So they announced that there was going to be a Winter Classic next year at Fenway. And this is the first time that a Winter Classic has been played on a field that's had it before. So this is the second time that Fenway is going to be the venue for an outdoor game for a Winter Classic. I should say for a Winter Classic. And so, yeah, we'll see how everything goes, but it's Pittsburgh, it's Boston, we kind of knew that's the way it was going to go. July 2nd, Winter Classic, so not July 1st. This is the sixth outdoor game for Pittsburgh, the fifth for Boston, and there are going to be a lot of fan bases of other teams asking, so when does a Winter Classic come our way? And I am not sure the answer to this. TNT will be carrying it in the US, Sportsnet and TVA will carry it in Canada. So, yeah, July 2nd, and we'll see when the schedule comes out whether they give that day entirely to the Winter Classic or not. That was a slam on it this year that the Winter Classic should have had more attention than it did. Um, I'm on the fence with that. I think that the ratings were pretty good as it was, but again, I think giving them a day would probably make some sense. Maybe make that the one early game, get it done with early, and then maybe have games later on the West Coast might not be a problem, but we'll see how they schedule it. Vancouver. So they're currently 28, 13, and 8 under Bruce Boudreau. Very good record. Eighth. They are eighth in points percentage in the National Hockey League since he took over. So for people who didn't like them being 11th in the power rankings a few weeks back. Anyways, the Canucks have had a very good record under Boudreau. They've stayed competitive. And another storyline that's starting to emerge is Quinn Hughes being at 55 points. It is unlikely he catches the Canucks record for points by a defenseman, but that record's held by Doug Lidster, who had 63 points in 86-87. It was a career year for Lidstrom, or Lidster. I knew I was going to say Lidstrom. Lidster. Doug Lidster was one of my favorite defensemen growing up. I remember that 63-point season because, 86-87 was not a good year for the Canucks, but at least Lidster had career numbers that year. So I think the highest point total he had outside of that year was like 38. So really, when I talk about Quinn Hughes and I say he is the most talented defenseman I think the Canucks have ever had, I'm not speaking from a point where I don't think that I have the knowledge on that. I've watched a lot of Canucks defensemen. There's been good ones. There's been Oland, Edler, Jovanovski was a star on the international stage, but Hughes has this pure offense, and it's kind of fun to watch. So we'll see. I don't think he reaches 63 this year, but it's only a matter of time before that record falls by the wayside, in my eyes. At some point, Hughes will get a 65, 70-point season, and he'll have that record. Reese Johnson has signed a 2-year extension with the Chicago Blackhawks. So it's a 2-year extension worth $800,000 per season. So that's fair. I think Johnson's been a good depth player for them. And so, that's a good move. Chris Pronger got a lot of people talking. So he looked at he looked at like a ridiculously high salary. I think it was like $8 million. And he looked at take-home pay, and he wasn't complaining. He wasn't whining. He was just saying, so here's the pay that a player gets. Here's what goes into escrow. Here's what goes into taxes before they've got it. Here's what goes here. Here's what goes there. Here's what they pay for. And so it ends up being a pretty decent chunk of their money. And I don't think he was crying poor. I don't think he was trying to say that, that hockey players aren't well compensated. He was just trying to point out for those really high salary guys, they don't get as much pay. And I think the problem is what he should have done is he should have done it with a guy who's making league minimum. He should have done it with a guy who's making league minimum. A guy who might only play 2 years in their career. And one thing that I was reading an article on was, you get players in the league, and I've read articles on this over the years. Your average career is not a Chris Pronger career. It's a short career. And you'll have guys that are in their mid-20s, late 20s. They might not have that college education because they were counting, they're NHL athletes, right? And so when they're done, they might have a few $100,000, sure. But if they don't have that skill, if they don't have that training, that money's probably going to go pretty quick after that. And there's all that other stuff. So I don't think he was trying to cry poor on it. I think it was just a matter of, here's how much gets taken. And I don't think that should... I get why people are, taking issue, because with the economy being as it is and inflation being as it is right now, I totally get people being upset. But I thought it was an interesting step by step of, okay, here's how much you're getting according to the salary cap, but here's how much you're losing before you even get home. All right, other news. Georgiev impressed me tonight, 28 saves. It was against the Flyers, but Georgiev's numbers have been improving over his last few starts, and that's good. The New York Rangers, down the stretch here, if they can get Shesterkin the odd rest here and there and still, stay in the running for that first place in the division, I think that's great. I've been a Georgiev fan for years, since he first debuted in the league, so I'm glad to see his numbers are getting better. We'll see if he's still the backup for the Rangers next year or what happens there. But I think he's been good. And if they did make him available on the market, I think there would be takers for him. Boston. So if you're concerned about Boston's depth right now and the amount of injuries they're dealing with, this news isn't going to make you feel better. No Lindholm tomorrow. No Pasternak tomorrow. They're still not saying a whole lot about how long they're going to be out, but I get the feeling it could be a while. Carlo is also listed as doubtful at best. Probably misses tomorrow as well, although Grzelcyk was a full participant in practice, so he should play. But if you don't have Lindholm, you don't have Carlo, and if Grzelcyk wasn't playing, that's 3 of their top 4 defensemen that would be out of the lineup. It's reminding me of the 2017 playoffs, where they were against the Ottawa Senators, and I think it was 5 of their top 6 were out of the lineup by the end of that series. It got ridiculous. So, and I mean, the Sens win that series, and it's great. The Sens go on a run. But on some level, I kind of felt like, if Boston had, 2 of the regular defensemen, how would that series have ended up? Anyways, so yeah, we'll see how that works for the Bruins. Of course, they could very well end up in a wild card spot anyways. And obviously, they're going to make the playoffs. So I guess it's just a matter of making sure these guys are healthy and good to go for the playoffs, right? I would rather see them avoid a date with the Florida Panthers, but I don't know that I see a matchup for Boston in the East where I would favor them right now. But again, we'll see. We'll see how long these guys are out. Word out of Dallas is Holtby likely done for the season. Rick Bowness basically saying that it looks like he could be done for the season. There hasn't been a whole lot said about what's going on with Holtby, but obviously when they brought in Wedgwood, that was a sign Holtby's not ready to come back, and he likely wouldn't be. Wedgwood, of course, has been quite the revelation in Dallas. He's playing well, much like he did when he first got to Arizona. And I like Wedgwood. I think he's decent as a fill-in, a guy you can count on for 4 or 5 games here and there. It will be Ottinger in the playoffs as the starter, but and that's if they get there, of course. But at least with the way Wedgwood's playing, they still have a chance to get to the playoffs. So fingers crossed on that one. Nemesnikov is now listed as week to week with a lower body injury. Nemesnikov had been useful for them since he came over at the trade deadline. It's a shame that he's out right now. But again, it's about making sure that A, you make the playoffs, and B, that he's ready to go when it's playoff time. So we'll see. Detroit. Interesting move by Detroit. They signed Magnus Hellberg to a 1-year deal. If that name sounds familiar, it should on some level if you're a follower of goaltenders. He has 4 career NHL games. I don't think any of them are, one of them might be a start. The other 3 wouldn't be. So he played 3 with the Rangers and 1 with Nashville. And 111 total minutes out of those 4 games. So that's less than 2 games of actual time. And so we'll see. We'll see whether or not Detroit's bringing him over to play for Grand Rapids, or if they envision him having some other role. He did have a .917 save percentage for Sochi in the KHL. He had, I believe, a .930 save percentage in the KHL last year. So we'll see if this is just a depth signing and if he's just over for the AHL, or if they're going to give him a look in net. Detroit might be willing to just see what he can do over the summer, next fall, and maybe he'll factor into their plans, right? Interesting note with the Vegas Golden Knights. So they currently sit 3 points behind both Dallas and LA. And the questions become one of, so are they chasing Dallas or are they chasing LA? Well, Dallas has 1 game in hand on Vegas. So Vegas has played 1 more game than Dallas, makes it more of a challenge. They have 1 game in hand on LA. Now LA, all 6 of their remaining games after tonight are now against non-playoff teams. But Vegas's schedule, now they have the upcoming game tomorrow against Calgary. That one's going to be tough. Then they're at Edmonton. That'll be tough too. But they go home, they play against New Jersey, Washington, and San Jose. They should win at least 2 out of 3 there. Then they go on the road. They play at Dallas, Chicago, and St. Louis. So the game against Dallas obviously is key. They want to win that one. They want to have a good record between now and then. But Chicago, that's a winnable game. St. Louis might not have anything to play for in that final game of the year. They might be either entrenched in third or they might be good at being second, and maybe they rest people. So for Vegas, it's a matter of them being kind of behind the eight ball. But from what I saw with LA tonight, it's not. I know it's the Avalanche, right? But there's definitely some weaknesses there with the Kings, and a lot of that has to do with those just injuries on the blue line. So Vegas may end up having to track down LA. That may be where we end up. Vegas may track down LA, and rather than the story that I keep seeing, which is what if Vegas beats Dallas and they get in and play Colorado. I think it's more likely Vegas would end up passing LA of the two, and then they'd end up against Edmonton in the playoffs. And Vegas-Edmonton would be fantastic. Not that LA-Edmonton wouldn't be either, and I'm not saying LA's going to just fall out, but LA's record lately hasn't been fantastic. And when you assume, well, they're against lesser opponents, so they're going to win, that can be kind of tough, because Vegas was assumed that they were going to win against lesser opponents on a road trip not long ago, and they didn't. So until those games are played, we just don't know what might happen. Vegas, the odds are still, I think, against them making the playoffs, but keep an eye on the Kings, what happens there. So interesting, too, watching the game with Montreal tonight, that with the injuries that Montreal's gone through, and Jake Allen's out for the year, and all these guys that are out for the year, Drouin's gone, of course, and so with all these guys on the injured list, they have enough cap space to bring back Carey Price. So Carey Price, the expectation is he may play this weekend. He's not that far out. Obviously, with Allen done, Montembeault and Primo are the goalies. But at practice today, Price wasn't giving up that net. Price was taking a lot of shots, and he wasn't allowing a lot of goals. So it definitely looks like Carey Price is going to be back as soon as this weekend. And so, yeah, that should be interesting to watch. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. The channel also hit 400 members. I got a little notice from YouTube on that. So to everybody who's signed up with a membership on the channel, thank you guys so much. It means a lot. And I will make sure that I'm, producing member videos here and there too. So thank you guys so much for all that. I will talk to you in the morning.